welcome to Find It, where we are here every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern to find something. And tonight, our very special guest is Lee Westervelt, and she is an amazing human being who teaches us human design. What does that mean? I mean, come on, we design our house, we design what clothes we want to wear, we design art, whatever. But who doesn't want to design a dream life? So I am excited to learn more about her, and I think you should be too. Let's have Lee Westervelt's intro, and she'll be right back with me. Lee, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Debbie. I'm so glad to be here.
Oh, I am so happy you're here. I have so many questions. I have known not any less about any of my guests than I do you. So I can't wait to learn about you as everyone pops in live. It looks like we already have people popping in. Make sure you ask questions, you guys, and participate while she's here. She's only going to be here like 30 or 40 minutes. So we got to get her in there. So Amy, I usually start with like, where are you from? I want to know exactly what you are. A dream design coach. Tell me what that means.
Yeah, so it's kind of a loaded thing, but basically I help people tap into what they're truly here to create in their life. So, you know, there's this idea that we're all here for a purpose and we all have these things that we're meant to do. And I think that somewhere along the way, we kind of forget that, we lose ourselves, we get, caught up in the conditioning of other people. And so my job is to help bring people back to what they came here to do, what they came here to create, who they came here to be. So it's a combination of what's called soul vision, which is basically helping people tap into their true inner desires, and human design, which is I can't think of the word, a system that was found by Ra Uru in 1987. So when you put those two things together, you get soul vision and human design, you get dream design. So it's basically your dreams are your mission and your design is the method.
Okay. So that helps me a little bit. But I like soul vision. I'm starting to feel like a little soul there. What spoke very loudly to me, what you said, was to figure out, to find it, what we were really meant to do in this life. That's huge to me, because I think we go through life, very hectic life, busy, and then all of a sudden you get to a place and you're like, wait a minute, am I happy? Am I doing what I want to do? What is my soul's purpose? And I mean, I think to an extent, we all do that. But when you work with people, how do you help them find it?
That is such a good question. I think what I really do when I work with people is I help them help themselves find it. Because I think that we have this plethora of coaches and healers in the space who, unfortunately, through conditioning or whatever, tend to lead with their ego. And so it's about their method, their way, how they're going to get you to do this thing. And for me, that's never resonated. I never wanted someone to tell me their way. I wanted them to show me how to find my way. So for me, it's about helping people tap into the inner guidance, really learning how to listen. Human design is all about your inner authority. We all think that we're being led by our brain, by our mind. But truth be told, it's a computer, just like a computer that you'd have in your house. And your authority actually comes from somewhere else in your body. When you can recognize that and you understand that authority is, whether it's in your spleen or your sacrum or whatever, then you start to understand that you're actually self-led. And the more that you realize that, the more you start getting guidance about what to do next. And not only is that guidance right there, but it's aligned. And that's when you start to see the manifestations of the prosperity and the abundance and the things that you want, because you're living according to your design and you're tapping into your true desires, not what somebody else tells you want or what you're supposed to want. So once we start that work, usually people kind of like ignite that inner guidance and they start to lead the way. And then I kind of shift into accountability and perspective more than the education piece at that point.
That's amazing. And when you mention manifestation, and when you mention about finding yourself and listening basically to your intuition, yours, not your parents and how they raised you and how they want you to do this and that, but what you innately really, really want for yourself. I wanted to ask you, as far as like for manifesting, what type of tips do you have? First, explain to our audience what your definition of manifestation is, and if you have any tips to share with us.
I never actually tried to define manifestation. I feel like it's been around in my life so long that I've
Mhm.
just kind of been, I guess it's just kind of part of who I am.
Yeah.
But I would say that manifestation is basically the act of aligning your frequency with the frequency of the things that you want to bring into your existence. So just being on the same wavelength as the things that you want to create. So the thing that I find that people really struggle with when it comes to manifestation is what they actually want, which brings us back to that design piece, right? Like people have a really hard time conceptualizing what it is that they truly desire and what they want out of life. They go, by default, they go by what everybody else wants or what they think they're supposed to want. In my case, it was what we were supposed to want in our MLM, right? To bring it back to that. So, I think that the more that people tap into that inner guidance, they'll find that a lot of the things that they truly desire are right there in their field. They
Yeah.
might be right there in their neighborhood. It might be someone that they've been overlooking. It might be an opportunity that the universe never knew, God's source, higher power never knew that they wanted. Well, I guess God would, but you know what I mean? Like that, like what they weren't aware of.
Yeah.
And because they made it known, that happened really quickly. So I find when my clients start tapping into what they actually want,
Mhm.
most of the time that stuff starts happening really fast. And then that, that suspension of disbelief just starts disappearing because they're like, oh my gosh, yes, of course I can make this happen. And then before they know it, they're off being their own co-creator.
Right. And so the point to manifestation is getting in an alignment with what you truly want, first figuring out what do you genuinely want. And when you ask someone that question, I probably think more times than not, they're like, well, I know, I think I know what I want. When you really ask yourself that question, it can be daunting to figure it out. But manifesting your desires and your wants, once you figure out what that is being in alignment with it, high vibing, right? You got to vibrate at that frequency. I think people think that's woo woo or whatever. It's totally not. And I am a testament to it. As soon as I started thinking, my mindset, and believing that I can do and achieve the things that I want, they started coming in like a freaking freight train. So, tips on that, on just manifesting, just like positive affirmations, pretending as though, not pretending, but believing in your heart you already have the things that you desire. Are these
Mhm.
some of the things that you also do for your life, right?
Oh yeah, there's so many manifestation techniques, and I actually have a lot of them on my brand new TikTok that I just
Yes.
created. But I think the biggest thing really is stepping into the identity of the person who has the things that you want and does the things that you want to do. And that really has been a game changer for me. So in my work, I'm always helping people because I work mainly with women. I'm always helping women activate their inner goddess, right? Stepping into that
I
inner
love
divinity.
that.
Yeah, recognizing that God self inside of them. Because the way that I think of it, and I happen to be a God fearing person. I told you this before we started. But, if God only had God to create with, right? Like, think if you had, all you had was pumpkin, everything you create is going to be pumpkin flavored in some way or another. It's going to
Yeah,
have pumpkin as an ingredient. So, if God is all there was, then everything is God flavored, including us. And
right.
so, when we give, God's source, higher power, however you look at it, permission to reside in our bodies, we are accepting the co-creation of that divinity. And I personally, and I can't speak for everyone, but I don't see any blasphemy in that whatsoever. Like, heck
No.
yeah, I want to help you fix the world? Heck yeah, I want to,
Yeah.
create more wholeness for everyone. Of course I do. Like, who wouldn't? I mean, isn't that why you created me?
Of course, we want to be our best selves and do these things to help the world, of course. Amy Lee, I want to find out how you got what happened with you in your life's journey that put you on this path. Where were you? What were you doing? And how did you get bloop where you are right now?
Oh, such a good story. Okay. So, back in college, I had kind of dabbled in The Secret. It came out when I was in college. So, yes, I am old. Um, but
Not hard.
when I was, well, yeah, when I was you hang out on TikTok long enough, you start feeling real old. Let me
Of
tell you.
course. Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
me tell you. But so we were living in Alaska. My husband was stationed there. We had two small children, and we had one on the way. He was about to be stationed in Korea. Not a deployment, but it's called a rotation. So he wouldn't be in harm's way, but I would still be home with three small children where the air hurt my face. Not a fan. And so basically, I went to him and I was like, look, you're my best friend. I waited my whole life to meet you. I want to be with you. I don't want to be two ships passing. That's not what I want. I hate this life. What do we do? And he's like, well, you've got to figure out how to make the money that I was making. And I'm like, done and done. No idea how I was going to do that. No idea at all. But I knew that the alternative to that was going to be that we were going to be stuck in this life, right? Living in Alaska, 7,000 miles away from everything I know, and at least 1,000 miles away from a mall, which, Debbie, you've got to tell me
Whoa.
you understand. I know.
Ouch. Ouch.
I know. I mean, it was ridiculous. You had to take
Yeah.
a plane to a mall. Yeah, you can only wear so much Fred Meyer, which is like the Walmart of the
It is.
Northwest. Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, so I figured, I had to figure it out. And so we started watching, these different what do you call it? Not infomercials, but like seminar specials things. And we came across this one from the 80s called You Were Born Rich by Bob Proctor and this guy, John Canary. And we're watching it, and it was amazing. But one of the things, Bob just kept yelling at me, and he's like, what do you really want? What do you want? What do you really want? And, saying like, God rest his soul, because he changed my life. But I was like, I really don't know.
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening was I was like, well, I guess I got to sit down and think about what I want. And so one of the things that I really wanted was to redo my bedroom. My bedroom was, was nice, but it was the things that were at the stores locally. And it was, didn't take a lot of effort. And so I said, okay, if I can do this, then, I'm onto something. So I went to, I got a piece of paper and I sat down and I said, what do I want my bedroom to look like? And I thought, okay, I want there to be white linens because, like a hotel, and I kind of want like a beachy theme, we still have the AC that has to sit on the floor. So we can't do anything about that. But I completely transformed my bedroom into exactly what I wanted. I even have before and after pictures. I'll send them to you later. I should have had them for tonight, but I didn't think of it. Sorry, guys.
I can show them.
But yeah, it's
So
really,
I'll post a clip of this tomorrow.
oh yeah. But it was really profound. In fact, the picture that I had over my bed is actually the one that's behind me. And so once that happened, I was like, well, if I can do that, I can do anything. So then I started manifesting money and trips and all these other things because I tapped into what I wanted. And, one day my husband said to me, we're making the money that we need to make. This is great. But what would happen if we made $20,000 a month? And I looked at him and I'm like, why do you do that? Like, we were doing so good. I was so happy. And then you got to go and raise the bar. And he was like, but what if we did? And I was like, what if we did? So long story short, we left Alaska about 18 months later, making well over six figures a month.
Nice.
My husband was able to retire from the military. We bought our dream house here outside of Savannah, Georgia. We have 5 beautiful children. He's not in the Army anymore. And I have hanging pots and pans, which is something that I've wanted since I was a little girl.
I love it. I love it. And this is all due to you making a conscious effort and mindset that you were going to do something, and then you manifested it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is, guys, if you've all been watching, this is what she was talking about in the very beginning. And this is how this took her to where she is now. And so you have a beautiful website, by the way. I went on and
thank you. I have the most incredible designer. She's, oh my goodness, I can't even explain it.
And I love that. So you have a designer for your home, but you help other people design their life. design their life. So I'm sure you have a ton of success stories. What's your favorite story you can share with us about a transformation client?
So I have this one client who I adore. And it's interesting when you first meet these like powerhouse clients, like, and you're an empath, right? Like you're always like, oh my gosh, like what if they don't like me? And, so you've got this wall up, and she just seemed like she was this really, like really strong minded, just very, like I didn't want to mess it up. We had our first call at 8 a.m. and I was like, oh my goodness. And it was just crazy. And she ended up being a real sweetheart. But anyway, she was an executive, a C-suite executive, and she wanted to start a business. And she didn't really know what she wanted to do, but she knew she wanted to help spiritual people. And so, we got over some of the limiting beliefs. We started talking about what she really wanted. She wanted to buy a lake house. She wanted disposable income. She wanted all these different things. And so we just started meeting together and talking about it and dream boarding it. And now she has, when she met me, she didn't have this other business. She was, making decent money where she worked, but she has 2 side businesses now, one of which where she is consulting for professionals all over the country.
Wow.
And the other one where she is doing visibility strategy for people who, want to get in front of earned media and things of that nature.
Wow.
And she didn't have any of that. And now she's like killing it. Everyone knows who she is. And, it's not because of anything I did. It's because, well, I guess it is, but it's because I helped her activate who she really was and all of that stuff that was kind of, because you have these dreams and you're going along with your dreams, but you've got this one little string of misbelief or disbelief or self-loathing, and it just kind of pulls you backwards, and you don't even realize that it's happening. By the way, if you're hearing that beeping noise, that's my kid's alarm, because I have a 4-year-old and I need to make sure that
We're having fun. I love it.
Yeah.
That analogy about the string, and you don't realize it, but it's almost like when you're floating in the ocean on a raft or something, and you're like, well, I'm not moving. I'm still staying right here. And it pulls you back, and all of a sudden you look and the shore is really far away.
Yeah.
Things happen like that to us without us actually knowing it, unless we are hyper aware and pay attention. And I think it's really cool how you work with people for them to find their inner self again, and the confidence and the belief system in themselves that they can go do what they were meant to do in this world. One thing I want to bring, and I know I got to make this quick, but I had Lynn steal one of your TikTok videos, and I'm going to have her pull this up for people to watch it. And then after it's off, I want you to explain it a little more. Okay.
Sure.
Pull that up, Lynn.
4 signs you're living with a high vibration and super attuned to energy. You feel like everything is magnetizing to you, including animals, babies, and miracles. Your ears are always ringing. You have an easier time noticing your triggers, and you're able to let them go much faster. You have an energetic connection to source, God, higher power, the universe, something truly greater than yourself. If you like this video, join our community.
Okay, so that kind of gave me chills. I don't know if I'm an official empath, but I think I probably am. I am all of the things that you mentioned, plus a lot more, is like my personality, and it's always Lynn. So it's my personality. So it would be interesting for you and I to have a sidebar conversation, so I could tell you some of the things that go on with me and in my world. Just like knowing things sometimes, and also feeling other people's sadness and all kinds of things. But with that video from TikTok, which I'm obsessed with your TikTok, and I know you're brand new, but you're doing really well already. Explain what empath and the high vibing and the ears ringing and tell us a little bit more about that. Educate us.
Yeah, there's so much there, but we are beings that are here, and we have the illusion of being humans having a spiritual experience. We're actually spiritual beings having a human experience. And so we are much more attuned to everything that we came from, and we are more of everything that we came from than we think we are. So we have this veil of forgetfulness, right? You have your conversation with the universe or God. He sits down, he says, okay, here's going to be your profile. This is your human design. This is what it's going to look like. You're going to do these 3 things. Just sign at the bottom here. Excellent. Here's your skin suit. And then we go trotting off to Earth. And, it's like, oh, by the way, you're not going to remember any of this. Then you wake up in a baby, right? So I think that for whatever reason, we are being called at this time to wake up and to be aware of who we truly are more and more every day. And so a lot of people recognize this. We call it ascension symptoms, right? So people are having things like their ears ringing, or their jaw starts to hurt, or they start to feel like they know things. For me, it was 2020. It was January. You can actually go watch this in my Facebook group. And I predicted COVID. Like all of a sudden I was like, guys, I don't know why, but I need to get on this, this thing. And I need to tell you this story. And I was like, it was just after the Super Bowl. And there was the whole thing with the Super Bowl halftime show, and the women were too dressed. They weren't dressed enough, women's empowerment. And what I noticed, and funny enough, this was right after everybody balanced their brooms together. So we should have known something was coming to divide us, right? But what I noticed was that there weren't party lines that were delineating who felt which way. And that was really interesting to me, because usually you've got like the conservatives feel this way and the liberals feel this way. And it wasn't like that. It was all over the place.
Yeah.
So it was like, that shadow is trying really hard not to integrate. And it's going to do something so insane, so ridiculous, that is going to encompass the entire planet, that is going to put a blanket of fear over everyone. This is what I literally said in my Facebook group in January of 2020.
Oh my gosh, Amy Lee.
Yeah. So, but that's not to pat myself on the back. That's to show you that there is a reason for what, and I don't know what it is, that so many of us are learning more, and that veil keeps being pierced, where we're starting to understand where we came from and what this is all about. So you've got these people that have these new sensations. They don't really know what's going on. They don't understand why they, like, for example, they're in a room full of people and they feel angry and they don't know why. And so what do? They look in their body for all the things to be angry for.
Mm-hmm.
And they may very well just create one, right? They might just actually construct one for themselves, when actually they're feeling somebody else's vibration.
Yes. I am so glad you brought that up, because I don't care if you're an empath or not. When you're around someone who's low vibing, if you don't put a bubble around yourself, they will bring you right down. I mean, I think that's just human nature, right? And so in your teachings too, and with your clients, you probably kind of instruct them on how to protect their energy from vampires. Mm-hmm. I mean, not vampires.
Whoever they're energy vampires. Energy vampires. It's not the thing that I really want people to take away. If you were like, what's the one thing? Here it is. There is no good and bad. There is no good and evil. It looks that way from our vantage point, but that's not what it is. It's this and that. It's called polarity. It's just polarity. It depends on which side you're on is what's good and evil. So I always love to use the example of the Taliban, right? Because here in the States, we think the Taliban, I mean, aside from their violence, and let's just talk about women. To the Taliban, their women are the most precious thing. They don't want anyone to look at them. So they put them under these, hijabs and abayas and whatever, and no one's allowed to look at them. To them, we're evil for, why do you want to look at our women? Why are you so obsessed with looking at some man's wife? That's what they're thinking. Mm-hmm. Right now, again, aside from all the other things that they do in the whatever, just put that aside for a moment. So what we have to understand is that there is no right and wrong. So when you have, there is no good and bad is what I mean. So when you have someone who's an energy vampire, number one, they might not be aware of it, right? And number two, they're not doing it to hurt you. Yeah. They're doing it because it's part of their journey. You know what I mean? And so we have to really, in this generation, we have to pull back from trying to label everything, because that's where the suffering happens. And I know I totally just cut you off. I didn't mean to, but I really wanted to share that point.
No, I love it. I want you to. It's about you. I want to hear what you have to say. And the other part of this is, I got to go back though. Now, see, what you just said goes completely against like what I believe as far as good and bad. So I mean, I don't know how to, like, when you say there's no good and there's no bad, or there's no evil and there's no good, necessarily, like, that doesn't necessarily vibe with what I am, what
Mhm.
I think. But the beauty of all of this is that it doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter that I think, oh, I think there's definitely evil. I think that there's definitely,
Well, it's evil to you, but to them, do they sit there and go, I am so evil? Like,
yeah.
no, like evil is relative. Are there people that are doing things that are against us that in our world are evil? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't identify as evil is what I'm getting at. I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting at that from to use Bette Midler, right? From a distance,
Yeah.
there is no good and evil. There's this side and that side.
Yeah.
That's what I was kind of saying.
Yeah, and I get it too, in the way that you are representing, in the way of your teachings, with helping people find who they are and their
Mhm.
inner. I get it. I get, like, where you're coming from. I do get where you're coming from, but I think that it's scary when you hear someone say, "Well, there's not evil," and then there's people like, "I shooting people." And all
Oh,
of
well,
that.
yes, but
Yeah.
that's that's mental illness and that's misunderstanding. And a lot of those people were abused as children. I mean, you can go back so far. Like,
Well,
where
that's a good
do,
point, Amy Lee.
where do you
That's a
throw
very
the
good
baby out with the bathwater? When do
point.
you say, hold on, this is where you became evil? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, if we're all God's children, then we're all God's
Mhm.
children. So
Yeah.
we kind of have to,
Hmm.
we just have to
I
put
love
it
this new perspective, Amy Lee. So this is what I crave, hearing other perspectives, because I think it helps me be a better person, all in all. So, and for all of us, we need to be able to listen to other people and get a new perspective. And then now part of that will become me as well. I'm educating myself by doing this. I love it. I had written down some things about, like, being an empath. You are an empath, and you know that for sure. And so, can you recognize that in other people?
Mm, can I recognize? I don't know if it's really something to recognize. I think more than anything, if people talk to me, I can hear the way, I can hear if they're a people
Mhm.
pleaser. I can hear those things. I feel so weird having this conversation. I also think that to some aspect I can read minds.
Yeah.
So I tend to like know what people are thinking or
Yeah.
whatever. And so if they say, well, what do tell me about me, and then I'll go say, and it's interesting because as a child, I thought everybody could do that. I thought everybody could just, tell people what underwear they're wearing, not literally, but figuratively.
Yeah.
And after a while, I got really alienated by it, and a lot of
Mhm.
adults would be like, how do like, were you
Think
snooping on?
that it's odd or weird, or yeah.
Yeah, or that I had done something, mistrustful. Like I've just always kind of been that way.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, if I meet someone, I can usually tell if they're an empath.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bob. I love you too.
And the other part of this is, being able to, oh yeah, I feel that you are two amazing ladies that I love. Oh, hey Bob. But it's just, it's interesting to me how you can feel that from people. And I feel like if we're all really in tune with ourselves, which you obviously are, in tune with who you are and your inner self, I feel like you can kind of, when you're around somebody, know if they're high vibing, if they're not, if they're not, even by before they open their mouth. It's like an energy you feel. Like, I know if I walk into a room, sometimes it can feel like kind of cold, or like, ugh, or it's like a better feeling. I think that if
Mhm.
you're in tune with yourself, that you can pick that up. Clearly yours is a step above, where you're even more intuitive, and there's things that, and it's just how you've always been. But I want to ask you about being emotionally drained. I saw a message or a TikTok or something where you're talking about emotionally drained, and also people pleasing and things like that. And we only have a little bit more time. So I think this is a huge factor for a lot of people that are kind of try to always be a people pleaser. They don't want to do anything for themselves that might hurt someone else and all that. Could you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I definitely think there are people that have been conditioned either through, emotional abuse or conditioning of many kinds, that they don't get to have a say, that they don't get to have preferences. So one of the things I was talking to you about before we got started was that there's this idea of ask culture versus guest culture. So in ask culture, it's like, excuse me, could you turn the AC down? In guest culture, it tends to come off as a little bit more passive aggressive, where it's like, oh my gosh, are you cold? Oh no, it's okay, I'm fine. And so, I grew up where it was very much guest culture, right? It was, you don't ask for more, you don't ask, for anything. If someone asks you what you want for your birthday, you say, oh, whatever you get me will be fine. Like, we just don't have that. And so a lot of people feel that way, and there was this one video that I made where it was like, if you're an empath, then you're probably, or if you're an introvert, then you're probably an empath. And if you're an empath, then it was kind of like if you give a mouse a cookie thing. And I woke up and I had like 200 followers, or I don't know. It was crazy. That video has been seen 101,000 times. And
wow.
Yeah. And people just really relate to this feeling that, because I mean, at the end of the day, there are people that benefit from other people not having boundaries. There are people that benefit from you not putting yourself first and not taking care of yourself, right? So they don't want those people to suddenly have that newfound confidence and independence and sovereignty, heaven forbid, right? That's a big one in this country right now. We're all about sovereignty. With the pandemic, and everybody's like, that my body, my choice. And now people are like, no, and then yes. And you've got two completely different sides of the coin, but they're both fighting for the same thing, which is sovereignty, right? So, so it's really a spiritual conversation that duality has created both sides of, so that everybody could experience what it's like to have that threatened, depending on how regardless of how you feel about either of those issues. Lynn will fill you in later on where I stand. It's probably very similar to you.
Yeah.
But, when it comes to being able to stand up for ourselves, people just don't know. And no one ever taught them, because it didn't behoove those people to teach them. It wouldn't have been good for them. So they keep them in the dark, so kind of part of my mission is to be there to be that light for people, so they can start taking care of themselves and recognizing their sovereignty, and so on and so forth.
I love that. I love the fact that you do this for people. So yeah, I see Lynn down there going, yay. Because, sometimes like when I help someone get ready for an event and I make them look cute on the outside, it's still like, that's why I wrote a book, was because I don't want to just make someone look cute on the outside. I want them to love who they are on the inside. And with you,
that's why I wrote my book. That's exactly literally why, like, my panda book is because there are all these people that are blaming kids for the way that they were just because of who they were born. And I'm like, what happened to the whole thing about, that Martin Luther King said, but by the context of their character? Well, here you go. Here's a book about a little black and white panda. Let's judge him by the context of his character and not by what his parents may or may not have done 1,000 years ago to some people, So yes, I completely resonate with that.
Could you hold that book up?
Oh,
sure. Is it right behind you?
Yeah.
So, let's see that. Aw. Okay. Oh my gosh. Did you have an illustrator?
I did. Her name's Mandy Moore. My friend Stacy, who's the publisher, actually found her for me.
Nice.
But yeah, she's amazing. She's really
Where
good.
can we find your book, Amy Lee?
You can find it on Amazon, Books A Million, Target, and wait, I missed one. Amazon, Books A Million, Barnes and Noble.
Awesome. That's amazing. It looks like I'm going to have to get me one. I didn't know you had that. I should have done
it's super cute. It's a really good story. I kind of downloaded it, but it's really good.
Oh, I love that. But I do, I find it very important, as all of us should, to dig deep, find what we are, who we are inside, and love ourselves. And what, we have things here and there that we might not love about ourselves, but we need to love ourselves, if that makes sense. Absolutely. And so, and, grow and become better and, all of these things. But before I let you go, and I do want to highlight a winner who is a lady who has been voted in off of my Find Your Fabulous page as being honored as a beautiful soul. And I would like to do that in a second. But before I do that, and then if if you can't stick around for the reveal of who won, I understand. I know you have another show at 9. First of all, you're doing a 180. You're doing shows for 180 days. Is that right, Amy Lee?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's amazing too. That is like really cool that you every single day, it doesn't matter. I know one day you almost forgot. It was like 11:30 at night and you jumped on and did it. So that's fun. That's fun. But anyway, I want you to just end with you and tell us first, what else are you working on? And also, I want to know what lasting words you want to give our audience to the big takeaway. You've given several. If there's anything else you'd like to add to that, now is the time.
Aw, thanks, Debbie. What I'm working on. So I'm working on creating my TikTok presence because I feel like short form video over there is going to be really helpful for people. There's a lot of millennials and a lot of people that just haven't been given this information. And so I think that's really important. I also have a Facebook group. I have a community over there and I love them and I love hanging out with them. And I think is kind of what I get going on.
And then you're also working on with Joe Ingram a little bit, right?
Yes, me and Joe and Lee Duke have created a company called Club Connects, and it's a hybrid of an in-person and social media networking. We're calling it quantum marketing, quantum networking. So basically, it's just kind of being able to meet people in a comfortable way. We have a lot of neurodivergent people. I'm neurodivergent myself. And we tend to, and empaths too, right? Like we like to warm up to people behind the scenes first before you go in for that big hug. And we've, because of the pandemic, we met a lot of people through this company early on, back when Clubhouse started and things like that. And it's just a testament that, when we meet these people in person, you can't wait to go give them a hug because you know them.
You already know them.
Yeah.
You already know them. Yeah. It's so amazing what, if you use these platforms for good and really have quality conversations that way, it feels like you already know them when you see them. It's like, oh, thank goodness we're finally, able to be in person. So I think that's an amazing thing that you're doing with Joe. So that's amazing too. But so any advice that you can give us as a big takeaway from what you've learned in your life?
Oh, I got a really good one. Yes. So there was a time when things were going a little bit awry, as will happen after you get your big thing, right? You start to wonder, you get complacent. We had a big tax bill that was looming. We were wondering how we were going to pay our mortgage. It was this big, scary thing. And I got this guidance to go and get I think it's called the Strong's Companion, where you go and it's all the different lines of the Bible. And I was like, I'm going to go find all the lines in the Bible that say faith and manifestation and abundance and love. And we're just going to write them out on big pieces of paper. And so we got this butcher block paper and we just wrote in like Sharpie markers, all the places where it proved that we were meant to succeed, that if we had faith, good things would happen. And my husband, I was like, so worried and like, oh my gosh, what if this happens? What if this happens? Because, I'm like a worrier. It's like my job as an empath. And he said, Amy Lee, everything is for the good. Everything is for the good. No matter what happens, no matter how it turns out, it's for the good. And when you accept that and you recognize that everything is by design, you don't understand it in the moment, but there's nothing that you look back and you can say, I learned nothing from that. I changed in no way from that, right? And there are even horrible things that you go back and go, you know what? I'd do it again if it got me here. And so I guess my takeaway for everybody is just remember that in the back of your head, everything is for the good. Even when it gets really rotten, even when I found out that my son, had a incurable, whatever, chromosomal thing. And I was telling you right before we jumped on, he was always going to be that baby. Did I want to be that baby's mother? That baby exists. Yes or no, do you want to be his mother? 1,000,000 times yes. And look at what I've been able to create in my life and in his life and who he will become. And my children, the way that they've been exposed to a life like that, like we don't even understand how loved we are. Whether you believe in God, source, higher power, the universe, the boogeyman, there's no way that the beings on this planet are not so loved.
Loved.
And when we presuppose that, to use a Lynn word, right, NLP, when we recognize that up front, that's where we start to really see the miracles.
That's powerful, Amy Lee. And thanks for everyone for piping in and watching tonight too. I would love to have you on again sometime in the future. I love what you stand for. I think you're super inspiring. I like your energy. I know you're high fiber, but I also know you have another show. So if you decide to leave when I'm showing this, it's totally fine.
Congratulations to whoever wins. I'm
Yes.
sending you so much love and energy. And if I wasn't so terrible and didn't book myself, I would never live for you.
It's totally fine. Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much. And I will connect with you some other time.
Sounds good, Debbie. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. So now, Amy Lee, thank you again for joining us and enlightening us. And I think what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about our next gal who is going to be honored from the Find Your Fabulous page. And her name is Elena Beverly. I'm going to pop her picture up on here. Here she is. Such a sweet soul, right? Such a sweet soul. And then here's another picture. Hello, Elena Beverly. And I bet you're wondering, who nominated me? Well, I'm going to tell you. Who nominated you is going to be difficult for me to say her last name, but I've been practicing. I've always known her, Joanna, and then it's Satrulis. Joanna Satrulis says this about you, okay? Elena is an encourager and a positive woman. She puts out a wonderful devotional on Facebook. So we got to look you up, Elena. She is always smiling and has an amazing style. She is genuine, warm, and humble. She is a model of how to invest well and truly love one's family, friends, and community. Joe Satrulis, she said, nailed it. Oh my gosh. We are so blessed to have so many women in our community lifting one another up. I am so blessed to be part of this group and this community, and I appreciate everyone tuning in tonight. So I want to tell you, next week on Wednesday, I'm going to be having a different backdrop. I can't wait for you guys to check it out. And it's going to be me with me for about 15 minutes. So next week at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, tune in right at the beginning because I'm only going to talk for 15 minutes. Believe it or not, it's going to be only 15 minutes. So with that, have an amazing Wednesday. Stay true to yourself. Figure out who you are. Love yourself. And I'll see you later.